Real quick. Well, good morning, everybody, and I'll get back to Jamie in just a minute. Make sure he gets his stuff together. Welcome to Driving GSA Sales. We really appreciate you being here today. I'm the CEO of isiFederal. I'm Dave Lowe. We're located here in Maryland. Actually, I'm not here in Maryland. I'm in, as you could probably have told or heard earlier, I'm actually in a hotel at Holiday Inn Express, so I'm one of the smart people. With us, we have Carl Dixon. He's the founder of CapturePlanning.com. Carl, say hey.
Hey, everybody.
Super. And Jamie is on the line as well with GSAProposal.com, and I know that he doesn't have his audio worked out yet. So if you can hear me, Jamie, make sure you put in that audio pin so we can get you up and running, because you're going to be talking in a few minutes, and we'll make sure you can get it. And I always have to bust on him for that picture that he's got there. So anyhow, everything's good. Now, there he is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
I'm watching the show, and I'm sitting right here, buddy, so we're on.
All right, good deal. I'm glad that it's actually working, so good deal. Welcome. Can you guys hear me okay? Obviously, it must sound all right. If you hear some music in the background, some kind of craziness, it's because I'm sitting in the hotel business center.
Yeah, Dave.
All right, great. Real quick, the question of the day is, why does 195 matter the most? That's the question of the day. Don't answer that, Jamie or Carl. I think you probably know. But everybody else, the number 195, think about why that matters the most right now. Real quick, on the right-hand side of your screen, you can expand your access into your control panel, and make sure that you have your audio pin entered so we can unmute you. And if you have any questions, you can go into the chat area or the questions area down on the bottom right-hand side, and we'll be able to talk with you as well. So, and there's a lot of folks on here today, and I'll do my best to be able to get to any questions that you have. Here's Steve's got one. Hold on a second, Steve. Let's see if I can get. Where are you? Man, days. Question. With that. All right, Steve doesn't have a mic. Okay, no problem. Yeah, all right, what we're going to do is just chat. You can chat on the right-hand side, and we'll get rolling. A little bit about us, the sponsors that are doing this. isiFederal, we do business development into the federal space, and we help companies bridge the gap, specifically for small and medium-sized businesses so that you can compete for federal opportunities. And with us, we have CapturePlanning.com, which also, this is Carl's group. And Carl, tell us a little bit about CapturePlanning.com and Prop Library real quick.
Sure. CapturePlanning.com is a publishing business, and Prompt Library is our flagship offering. That's where we've taken all the content that we've published over the last 10 years and turned it into a tool that people can use to guide their efforts from lead identification all the way through preparing the proposal to win the opportunity.
Super, and I love what he does, because I don't want to do what he does, but and it's great to have him on board. And today we have Jamie with GSAProposal.com, and they help with new schedule development as well as maintenance of schedule and extensions. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Jamie, say hi and give us the overview of GSAProposal.com and what you guys do.
Hi, Dave. It's Jamie Zell with GSAProposal.com. We've been at this a little over 10 years, and we help clients get new GSA schedules. And then we also help clients as they go through the life cycle of their schedule, keep their schedules current with revisions and also extensions as they go through their 5-year increments of the life cycle of their GSA schedule.
Super, and that's good stuff. That's another thing that I really don't want to do. we focus on going out and building the relationships, and all these other things that are necessary for being able to win are all rolled into the federal strategy. And there's other components too, with compliance and other things that we like to address here as well. We're not going to be addressing those today, but we like to address those. Just a little bit about this series. It's designed specifically for you, GSA schedule holders. And the idea is to identify those obstacles that you have in obtaining business with the federal government. As you know, there are many, and that some of those are very broad and large, and they change on a regular basis. So we kind of look at those obstacles to help you maneuver around them. We help you find ways of gaining exposure out into the marketplace, give you some insider information, some of the secret sauce that we use to be able to do this, and provide access to resources like Carl, like Jamie, like us, and others that operate in the federal space that can help you fill those gaps that are evident and present in your company. So why are you here today? Everybody's here today. When we do this, we put out a little questionnaire when we put these out, and some people fill them out and some people don't. But the ones that do, we like to be able to call out. And we have Listel Greenwald with, I have no idea, Promontory Management Group, and what he wanted was to address in detail how small businesses should market, and we're going to talk about a little bit of that marketing today. Actually last month was a great one for marketing. If you want to check out YouTube, you can do that. You can do that too. And Raphael wants to increase your exposure to the federal government. That makes all good sense. And Sarah says, if you're provided with marketing tips where I can find the right customers for my service, that's right in our sweet spot. And Sarah, we're actually going to be talking about that today specifically. And I want to make sure that we hit that really hard. Linda, a practical action plan for the marketplace. And Nicole, if it helps us secure new business, obviously, very important. And Rocco, learn how to increase my chances of winning work. You may see a theme here. Matt Johnson, it helps generate revenue from GSA sales. And Michael says if the info is new and revealing. Again, the whole idea is it help us make sure that we're meeting this criteria. A lot of this revolves around what happens with federal contracting holders, and that is that you're not alone in this quest. Most folks with their GSA schedule, a lot of people are here because their contract is underperforming and they're in danger of losing it. They can't find the right people. Again, what Sarah said earlier, I've been doing everything, but I just can't break through. I can't get their attention. I can't seem to make any headway. Very challenging in the federal space. The buyers won't talk to me is another one. I don't understand the federal marketplace. I really don't. I don't get how things operate, and that's another reason why we're here. And there's also opportunities for different schedules. We just had this happen a couple of times where a couple of folks I talked to last week, they were saying, hey, they're asking for a Schedule 70, and I don't have one of those. Should I get one? And you know, does it make sense to expand your offerings? And some of those can be added to your existing schedule. Right, Jamie? So you can add some of the things to your existing schedule, but some of those you're going to have to create a whole new schedule in order to be able to compete for that business. Isn't that right?
Yep, that's exactly correct. In many cases, people try to cross-classify something you cannot, and you just have to ante up and get an additional schedule to cover some of the other services or products that you want to offer through GSA.
Yep, and that's just the rules of the game. And again, everybody knows that GSA schedule does not mean that you get business. So that's one of the reasons here. And the one that was really raging the past couple of months is, you know, the FBO and RFPs are already baked for your competitors. And how do you get around that? How do you get to the position where you're starting to influence those RFPs so that your information is in there instead of your competitors? So all those. Why is this? This is typical for GSA schedule holders. In fact, most of the GSA schedule holders were failed. This is crazy. When we started looking at getting into the federal business and launching isiFederal, and this was 6 years ago now that we're looking at this as a model, we were talking with senior folks at GSA. 80% of the folks that get their GSA schedule lose their schedule. 50% of them don't get a dime. And another 30% don't meet the $25,000 minimum. And I don't care what you do. If all you do is $25,000 in sales in a given year, that's still a categorical failure. You didn't get your GSA schedule to get $25,000 worth of sales. And yet, that seems to be one of the biggest problems that folks have out there. And 80% don't make it. And don't think that this is just for GSA folks. This includes 8A, service disabled, women-owned, whatever classification you have. All these folks have a tremendous problem. In fact, 5,000 of the 9,000 8As, 5 of 9 will not get a dime. Again, an incredible amount of folks that are out there that have done it. If you think your GSA schedule is hard to get, wait till you try to get an 8A. And it's just an incredible process. And most 8As graduate and then disappear because they've they've been working and working under the 8A, if they have been able to do it, and then they fall right off the face of the earth, and they really don't know how to compete because they weren't paying attention to how to transition out of their 8A program into something that's profitable in the federal space, and they simply cannot compete. So that's the cold hard truth in the federal government is federal business development is not easy. If it was fast, easy, and cheap, everybody would be able to do it. And that's why we're all here, to help you understand and help us all work together to understand how to best compete in the marketplace. And I'm telling you, you can do it. You can succeed, and you can make a lot of money in the federal space, as you know, because you can grow your business here. It's a $425 billion market, and even if they cut by 5%, you can still see that that is an enormous marketplace. 2.5 million contracts, 23% is set aside for small businesses. They buy everything all around the world. There's thousands, tens of thousands of buyers, hundreds of agencies, and they are the #1 customer in the world. And that's why we're all here, and to make sure that we understand how things work in the marketplace. As we mentioned before, the number that matters most. Did anybody put in the number over here in your panel? If you happen to know what that number means. Anybody know what that number means? Let's see. And I'm going to open this because we have a couple of questions. Anybody know what that number means for 195? Nobody has it in there, so I'm just going to go ahead. That's 195 days until September 30th, 2013, where at 11:59 p.m. Hawaiian time, you will have the last contract that's executed in this fiscal year. It's very important because that is when we see tremendous amount of activity, and this is across all spectrums with the exception of food, because people are buying food all the time. But with the exception of that, and even some food products, this still happens. Take a look at this. This is September. September. Look at it. Anybody see a trend here? September, September, September. This happens every single year. You need to be positioning yourself right now for September spending. You want to make sure that you have access to the buyers that are spending in September. That makes the most sense. And all these contracts, they spike anywhere from 200%, and even higher than 800%. But we've seen it over and over and over again, no matter what the market is, that you will have an incredible spike in September. So the best thing for you to do is to leverage your relationships. If you don't have them, make sure you're building those relationships so that you can gain influence to get ahead of the RFP process like we're talking about earlier and develop or find those winnable opportunities. And you cannot be going to Fed Biz Ops to get them because most of those are already slated for somebody else. They'll tell you they're not, but we all know that we've all won stuff that we've done, that we've had influence on the RFP, and we've all been beaten by people who have influence on the RFP process. Even if we have a superior product, a superior price, we still can lose if we're not the ones that are in there influencing that decision-making process. And today we're going to be talking about the secret sauce, some of the secret sauce that we have, specifically what Sarah said earlier, finding the right people that buy what you sell. We're going to be digging down into how we do it, and we'll show you exactly with our market intelligence, what we do for our intelligence, what we do, how we do it, and what you can expect from the results that when we look into it. So we'll talk about how you can gain access to that as well and build those relationships. But you got to start. You got to start with understanding the market, and you got to know how that market looks. So real high level for folks that haven't seen this before. Most of you know some of this because you've been in the federal space, you've been doing this, but there's some new folks with GSA schedules. You have your administration. There's 3 different areas. You have the administration, you have the program side, and you have the procurement side. And the administrative comes with an initiative. This could get driven from the President of the United States. It could be healthcare initiatives, whatever it happens to be. So this gets driven down to the program side, and they identify needs and say, hey, we need this stuff in order to be able to fulfill this, and they provide a budget for being able to get these fulfilled. They develop requirements from the program side, throw it over the fence to the procurement side, and they send those costs up and make sure that they get approval from everybody that's involved. So you have this constant moving of initiatives and needs going back and forth and making sure that requirements are set. And so what happens is you have specific folks that are buying your products and services. And as a result, you need to understand those buyers. And there are three primary players in any of your business procurements for mostly in the small business side. Sometimes there's only two, but you'll see how they kind of work together. But if you get into these larger procurements with 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, billion-dollar procurements, you're going to have a slew of people that are influencing this. But for most small business in your right size, in your sweet spot, you're going to find that there are decision clusters that are developed, and they revolve around three people. You have your program manager or project manager, that'd be Ed, and then we have Jill, who's the COTAR, the technical representative, and then you have Don, who's the contracting officer or CO. And these folks can take on different names depending on the agencies or whatever they happen to be, but just know that there's a project manager, a program manager, a technical representative, and someone that's a contracting officer, contracting specialist on that side. And each one of these folks are assembled around a project, and they'll move around and they kind of connect each other at the hip at different times. And each one of these people have different roles, they have different needs, different buying motives, and each one has a different reason and a different way for making decisions. This could apply to what happens within the agency, or it could just be applied to their quirky personality, that they have ways of making those decisions and how things operate in their federal space specifically. Now, we're going to go through real quickly on each one of these because it's very important to know each one and how you're going to be addressing these folks. First of all, your project manager or program manager are responsible for taking those initiatives. Again, some from the president, some through agency heads, whatever they happen to be, and they drive those initiatives down. We see a lot of things for green. Anything that's green is good. LEED certification, all those kind of things. I just shot out an update recently for GSA, who's looking for green certifications. And this is an interesting thing that you can utilize, and we'll talk about certifications in a minute specifically for green. But cloud computing's hot right now. Man, if you're in the IT space and you're not working on the cloud or working with some kind of solution for virtualization, you're going to be missing it. And security as well, any type of security, physical security, IT security, all hot right now. You also have cost cutting and cost savings, a double-edged sword, because they wind up cost saving over here, but they don't get to bank that money to use someplace else. And a lot of that is very difficult for agencies because power is assembled and held by controlling your budget and maintaining your budget. Some of these are political initiatives that are driven down. Again, healthcare, huge right now. And then they're responsible for looking for new ideas and technology. They're not like cutting edge or bleeding edge, but these folks are the ones that are more likely to be willing to listen to some new ideas that are working. And there's some folks in the federal government that are very, very interested in this. And the most important thing is each one of these folks are influenceable. You have the ability to help them craft the scope and craft the requirements using your capabilities to be able to craft them. If you're wondering how things get baked, this is exactly how things get baked, because you have a relationship with folks, project managers or program managers, and others as well. But these folks help to assemble the requirements for the scope. They want to get the job done right. And your job is to tie in with initiatives, right? Tie your stuff in with initiatives. Make sure it matches with their plans and their overall mission as an agency, right? And then just help them look good. Core human emotion. Help them look good. That's really, it's not more complicated than that. They want to make sure they get the job done right, so help them look good. It's pretty easy if you know what you're doing. Technical representatives, they kind of bridge the gap between your contracting officer and the program side. Most of the time, they are on the program side, just a lower level. Sometimes they're actually the PM themselves. So every once in a while, you'll find 1 or 2 or 10 or 15 where the project manager is actually the technical representative as well. Very good, because you don't have to cover somebody else. They're generally risk averse. They assist in assembling some of the technical requirements, and you'll see why that's important. They help with the government standards. Identifying purchases that other agencies have done, assembling those certifications. We talked about those certifications before for green and LEEDs, and the GSA is looking for certifications. Why are they looking for certifications? They're looking for certifications so that they can start to build a case for what the best kind of contractor or engineer or construction firm, whatever they're looking to do in the green world, and that includes IT as well, is what kind of certifications are they going to require you to have. And if you don't have them, That's the easy way to keep you out of the competition pool, and it's another way that you can utilize your certifications to push away your competitors. So this can be driven right down into the scope, and if you don't have those certifications, guess what? You can't play in the pool. So again, it's all part of them assembling these mandatory requirements. Your job, help them with the requirements and to help them look good. How easy is it for you to be able to feed them information? If you have a relationship with somebody and you say, hey, this is something that's important, just take a look at this. See if this makes sense to you. In the commercial world, this is what's happening, or in this agency, this is what's happening. This is what they're looking at. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Next thing you know, you're starting to push the competitors aside. And again, help them with the requirements, help them look good. Make sense? The next one, contracting officers. These folks are busy. They move paper. That's what they do. It's not to diminish what their job is, but their job is understanding procurement. Their job is not to understand your WSMO application or your translation or your transcription services or your IT services. There's far too technical for that. Not that they're not interested in that, but they're buying most times, sometimes they're stovepiped, but most of the times they're buying pencils and pens and computers and planes and HVAC equipment and electrical. They're just all over the map. So the idea is that you're going to present yourself in a way to help them get through the procurement process. They don't like new things. They're experts in moving that paper. They select the purchasing mechanism. They're going to decide whether it goes out for simplified acquisition. They're going to decide if it goes out for full-blown RFP or if it's going to get set aside for small business or for service disabled. They're also going to decide what makes code they use or the PSCs that they're going to be interested in. All these things are driven from the contracting officer side, and guess what? This also helps to minimize the competition. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes if we get a chance. But they develop the contract documents. They administer the contract documents post-award sometimes, not all the time. And the biggest thing, they want the fastest way to be able to procure this thing. Why? They don't want 50 competitors any more than you do. They have to read 50 RFPs if they have 50 competitors. They want to make sure that they meet all the letter of the law, right? But they're creatures of habit too. They don't want to be spending the time reading 25 or 30 proposals. So they want the fastest way to purchase. Easy is good, and make them feel valued. And this is something that we talked about, I don't know, a month or two ago in the other programs, is that when you think about your folks that you're calling on in the federal government, a lot of times we're infected by, we're outside the government, they're inside the government. We think that they can't get anything done and they're lazy and all the rest of the things. Everything that you can possibly build up for, you just think of the DMV. If that doesn't make your skin crawl or drive you crazy, if you think of going to the DMV, that's what we wind up infecting our brain with. And a lot of times this winds up flowing out of us without us even knowing it, and we devalue people. And that's something that's really important to get your hands around, your head around, of how you're approaching them. Make sure that you value each one of these people. So here, these are the three folks that are involved in this. Let me pop out here real quick for some questions. Again, make sure, open that right panel, and make sure you open you type in your audio pin so I can unmute you. And I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that we have here, and we'll see what we can do to answer some of those. All right, sequestration, how is it affecting GSA? We're going to get to that. In fact, Carl is going to get to that as well. We can talk about that a little bit broader. It depends on the agency. Let's see, what else we have? Would it be possible to get a copy of the presentation at the end? Yes, you can, Steve. We will do that as well, and we will we'll provide video access. I'm recording this so you can have the whole thing. And how do you find the PMs? Great question, Listel. And in fact, I'm going to unmute you real quick. Listel?
Can you hear me?
Ah, yes. And I made the mistake of calling you a guy. I apologize.
That's okay.
I can hear you. So tell us about you, Listel, what you do, and what it is that you're asking.
Well, our niche is cost-saving measures. We do process improvement, strategic process improvement for government. We've done a lot of work. Sorry, go ahead.
What does that mean? Process improvement. Give me a real-life example.
Well, some recent work we did was with the Lake City Army ammunition plant. They make all of the bullets for the Army, and they were about to lose their government contract because there was a problem with the bullets. So we went in and solved the problem, found what the source of the problem was through using statistics and mathematics and that kind of thing, and brought him into spec.
Super. So you help. Now that sounds like that was that's an ammo plant. Now is that a prime contractor then that you were working with?
We subcontracted that one.
Okay, cool. So now your question is how to find the PMs, right? So because there's two sides of the house. You got the procurement people, where the contracting folks, and you have the project managers. What are you finding is the biggest problem in finding those PMs?
Well, I'm wondering if the COs are the gatekeepers for the project managers.
Sometimes they are. They certainly know who they are. So the question is, how do you get them to divulge that information, right?
Right. And at what point, like we've got an RFI that we're looking at to respond to, and it would be really nice to know who the key players are on that. Okay.
And there's you mentioned something that is really interesting, because there, like we said earlier, there's a program side and there's a project side, and there, unfortunately, I mean, we can get to a lot of the contracting folks. We do a lot of research. I'm going to show you that in a minute, because they were asking about, somebody else was asking about finding the procurement people, and depending on the size of the contract, depends on the importance of the contracting officer. If it's a $100 million procurement, I'm telling you, the contracting officer almost doesn't like to work on that because there's too much exposure politically, and something goes wrong and they're hauled in front of Congress. But when it comes to something that's less than $750K, they become very influential. Down in like $150K, they're deciding it's all small business, and then they can really help the funnel thing. So what's the average size contract that you work on, Estelle?
Oh, we need contracts.
I know. What size is your average, give or take?
Small. Probably 25K or less.
25K or less. And that is one place where you'll find that your contracting officer is critical, because a lot of that, and being able to facilitate that. Now, you're on the consulting side, so you got to get buy-in from the program side as well. And we'll show you some of the ways that we can kind of understand how to go to get those folks, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I really appreciate the question, because that's a question I think that everybody has, is how do you find the PMs? Let me see if there's another question here that I can answer real quick, and we'll get to that, Estelle, okay? We really appreciate it. Let's see. How do you find people? What are the rules these three people have to follow in allowed contact and relationship building with us? Rocco, great question. Where are you, Rocco? I'm going to unmute you. Rocco, how are you? Uh-oh. I don't know if I can unmute you. We got too much.
I dialed you in on the phone as well.
Yeah. Super, yeah. It's like feeding back like crazy. There are definitely rules these people have to follow, but again, we're going to get to that. Actually, we're going to dive into that in just a minute. So I'm going to put that off for just a minute. And if you have any other questions, just type them in or raise your hand, and I'll let me just make sure that I didn't miss anybody for that. But we'll definitely get to that. So real quick, this gets to the decision makers that we were just talking about with Estelle and also Rocco. These are the folks that are responsible for this, and this is some of our secret sauce. This is what we developed originally, because we're out there pounding the pavement for clients and working on building relationships, and I was like, hey, I need the same thing you guys do. I need to know who to call, and I need a strategy for going after those folks and make sure that I can get to them, right? So that we're all in the same boat together. If we're knocking on doors, you're knocking on doors, there's got to be a way to be able to, one, identify those people, and some of that revolves around the two different sides, right? We have the contracting officers, and we have the program managers. Fact number one is people buy from people they like. So when we can, and some of these sales processes that we're going to talk about are actually, we'll be working through some of the pieces that evolve out of years of sales training and working with people to develop these. Because number two, relationships trump the check boxes. If you're an 8A and you're losing business to a big business, how can you possibly be losing that business when you have such a competitive advantage? It's because they have relationships that are deep, they're stuck in there, and you just can't get it. So relationships trump the check boxes, and if they like you, they will figure out a way to buy from you. And this goes to, and everybody knows this. This happens in the regular world as well as the federal space. So none of this is really new, but I want to make sure you know that it does operate like this. So what do the federal buyers need? They need political cover, they need technical cover, and they need pricing cover. And they need it to make it easy. Your approach, getting into it helps with your political cover, and this goes into how, even if you find the PM, Listel, how in the world are you motivating them to be able to talk to you? So if your approach is top-down, if you start to map out the agency, if you know where the money is, that's the first thing. Find out where the money is, and we're going to tell you that in a minute. But find out where the money is, find out who the key buyers are on the procurement side, then you're going to have a basic understanding of where this stuff is happening. And then you can go map out the agency on the program side, and then you can develop your approach. Top-down approach works just as well in the federal government as it does outside the federal government. Talking to the higher level folks, you don't have to go to the President of the United States, obviously, but you can get, or the administrator of the agency. You don't have to do that, but you need to get a couple of levels higher so that your approach comes down on top of those folks. And that's how, but you still got to identify them first. So if you can identify them, then you can get to them, right? So the next thing is your technical cover, which is your proposal, which we're going to talk about with Carl in a minute. And third is your contract vehicle, which is your GSA, right? That's your pricing cover. So again, making that, wrapping it up in a nice little bow and giving it to them is how you can deliver this. The real question is, with your approach, how are you going to get to those folks? Exactly what we're talking about today. First thing is, who are the buyers? Who are the people that are responsible for this? And we're going to talk about our secret sauce. And we talk about high probability targets for what you sell. What we said is, man, the information's out there. It's just not usable. I can't figure out who the people are that are responsible for this. So what we did is we built a process and a program, and this has taken us 5 years to do. And we have the ability, we take the information, we sift it, because power is maintained in D.C. and any of the agencies through budget. If that's the case, then they're going to want to maintain their budget from last year to this year. And the people that are responsible for spending that are going to be the same people that were last year. So you can talk about forecasts all you want and all that stuff, but a lot of stuff doesn't even hit forecasts, right? And it doesn't hit FBO either. So where is it? Who are the people that are responsible for this? So we look back at historical information. We say, okay, here are the folks that are responsible for buying, and we get down into the nuts and bolts of it. And your market should fit your sweet spot. You shouldn't be going after $100 million opportunities if you're not ready to do that. And most small businesses are not. They're not even ready to team on something like that. They're not ready. And not only that, there's a whole lot of crumbs that are underneath that $750,000. A lot of crumbs, like you said, Listel, they're $25,000 or less. Never hits Fed Biz Ops. Never, ever hits the light of day. Where are they? How do you get to them? So again, here we have the buyers that are responsible for specific purchases. And each one of these, we look for that sweet spot. Here we have Delaria Moore, who bought $12.3 million. This happens to be tactical gear, but you just plug in whatever you guys do. 90 contracts for $12.3 million. We have another one with the U.S. Marshal Service. That's an agency that doesn't get called on every day from most of us. 40 contracts, $1.7 million. So we're talking about a ton of contracts that are out there for these different things. And look at this size. This lady, Carmelita, handles $100,000. That's her largest, was $99,000, less than $100,000. Every one of these is going out under small business, and you have $1.7 million for tactical gear. And this is one of those folks that becomes a prime target and prime contact for that. Now, that's pretty cool if you know who that person is and all that stuff. Well, guess what? We also have this electronically, so we can import it into our database. We can sort it. We can prioritize it. We can create a strategy around these people, and we can go after those folks. And we can look at their total amount. You got Cynthia Holmes, $389 million. You think there's some money there? With 151 contracts. You know Cynthia is doing some large contracts. May not fit your sweet spot. Maybe she has some crumbs, though, that could do that. There's the agency. We have the phone number. We have the emails. This has we have the ability to create a strategy around reaching out to those. Again, most of these are one side of the house. Some of those are technical representatives, which fall into the PMs, but most of these are on the contracting side, and you got to cover both. You've got to get in touch with them and make sure, because I've been shot by contracting. I baked the whole scope from the program side all the way through, and we had a $1.2 million opportunity per year, and we got beat because I didn't cover the contracting officer. I don't make that mistake anymore. I want to make sure that everybody knows how important these people are, especially on contracts that are less than $750,000. A lot of times these folks are responsible for it because commoditized, these folks drive the bus for commodities. So you guys need to know that you have to cover these folks. And these are the folks that we find. It helps find under the radar opportunities. They never hit FedBizOps, and they never hit the high dollar databases like GovWin or any of those. They're $500,000 and up. And most of the time, guess what? If that stuff is out there on the major databases, who else has access to it? The Northrops, the SAICs, all the folks that are deep and wide in these and have relationships. We want the stuff that fits your sweet spot, and then we can get competitor specific. Let's talk about this for a minute. If you know that there's 642 buyers for what you sell, how do you go after them, and how can you be relevant to them, and how can you stay relevant to them? I want to talk about exactly what I was talking about with these buyers. If we're talking about specific contract, this goes back, this is tactical gear, okay? This is the summary for this. I'll go over this real quick. There's 2,300 competitors that are identified, $10.8 billion market per year. Think there's some money in tactical gear? And the average contract value is too large. But some of these folks are buying smaller contracts, and what we do is we'll look at specific contracting folks for very specific competitors. And here we go. Here's Aardvark. These folks are competitors for one of our clients, and we looked at them and we say, look, hey, this person, Robert Hall, had $20.3 million that they spent with this competitor. Do you think that Robert has a relationship with Aardvark? You're darn right they do. And and Carl, I'm going to reach out to you in just a second, so make sure you're unmuted. There's a couple things that can happen here. One is that you know exactly who you got to battle against. And what are some of the solutions if you see something comes out, Carl, comes out with Department of the Army with Robert Hall's name on it, and it's for tactical gear. What are some of the things that you can get? What are some of the things you know right off the bat? You there, Carl?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm catching up.
Did you hear my question, or were you playing your video games?
Yeah, I was goofing off.
So
bring me up to speed.
The question is, if something comes out from the Department of the Army for tactical gear and Robert Hall's name on it, and he did 31 contracts with Aardvark, you have a couple of different options. What are they?
Well, option number one if it's Aardvark and they're looking like a preferred vendor, option number one is no bid it, walk away.
Walk away. Don't even spend your time.
Yeah.
On the
option number two is a lot more fun. It's steal it. Take it away from them.
That's right. That's exactly right. And it can be won, can't it? You can win even if you have a preferred vendor. You can win, can't you?
You should not be afraid, when something has an incumbent. Now, when they're sending everything to that incumbent, it starts to look suspicious. But just because there's an incumbent, you shouldn't be afraid of it.
That's right, and that's one of the things that relationships, and asking a simple question, can I know that you prefer Aardvark, but I'd like to be first choice for second place. If they can't fulfill something specific, give me a shot. And next thing you know, you start to noodle in on that business. That the crack in the door is open. And you can say things. I made a lot of money by saying, hey, I'm not going to steal Aardvark's business all at once. I'm not going to take all. You have a great relationship with them. I don't want to jeopardize that. But, hey, it never hurts to have a second vendor to take a look at, especially one that's good. And I want to prove that I'm good because I want the same kind of treatment you give Aardvark. Eventually, not today, but hey, give me a chance. Give me first choice for second place. Again, great strategy for getting there. So let's go that. So in order to be able to go after these folks, again, you have all these buyers. How are you going to go after them? But the next thing that you need to do is to have a plan. And part of that plan you already have a piece of. And I'm gonna lean on Jamie for just a minute to talk about how you can update your GSA schedule and how you can make your GSA schedule relevant and be able to leverage your GSA schedule and make sure it is relevant to the marketplace and it is the right schedule. Tell us about what you see out there that's happening when you have folks, because a lot of times you're doing 2, 3, 4 contracts for certain folks. Why is that they would have an additional contract? Why would they do that?
Well, Dave, it starts kind of from working backwards from GSA's own rule book, and many clients have diversified solutions that fit neatly into their world under one bonnet, but when you look at how GSA classifies and sees how those different solutions are brought to the table, that forces them to go into different GSA schedules. Now, they may be doing something in the way of a combination of business improvement process services and also engineering services, which would specifically call to 2 different GSA schedules that might be a couple of departments or divisions within their same company, but to bring both of those to the table within the world of GSA and through the GSA buyers to be able to get, you know, the opportunity to win business through the GSA portal, they have to end up going after an additional schedule, or in some cases multiple schedules. We've had clients with as many as 4 or 5 GSA schedules, and wouldn't necessarily be uncommon to do that if you have a diversified offering.
And one of the things I love about Jamie's group is they look at what we do in the marketplace and they say, well, if it makes sense to develop a schedule based on what the market is saying, don't just go out and willy-nilly go out and get a schedule. I mean, there's something that really fits in your sweet spot, that's fine. But a lot of times when you're doing the marketing, you'll find out that something's coming out of Mobus. They're using a Mobus contract, and you really can't compete. If you have a schedule set, you can't compete. So you're going to have to develop a way to be able to compete for that. And another thing is to make sure that your schedule is current and up to date, because a lot of times I've seen it where, you know, you put the stuff up there and it's up there for years and it never really gets touched again. What's important about that, and how hard is it to add and delete products and services? Can you help them with that as well?
We certainly can, and you know, that's something that if you look from the mind's eye and perception of the buyers, some of the schedules and the presence and uploads of their offering on GSA Advantage are terribly dated. They may have got a schedule 2-3 years ago, and they're showing products and model numbers on GSA schedule that may not even be relevant or available in the way of hardware. So it's important to keep your schedule current and to get rid of old offerings or old products and make sure you've got current latest things up there. And that happens as a pathway when you go out and you revise your GSA schedule. And that's something that we do as a service where we help clients go through that process to open the schedule up, and then basically we start by taking out the trash, get rid of any things that we don't want in there, and then from there look at what should be going into there, what's coming out, what's coming up, what's new in your offering, what are the things that you want to make sure and have in front of the federal buyers because they're on your GSA schedule. And that's an important component of that. Once those changes are relative to the schedule and put onto your GSA schedule, is to then echo that by getting that new content, the latest, greatest content of your schedule up on GSA Advantage, which is their electronic searchable super phone book to look for products and services.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So making sure that your information is updated, and you think about it, all of us are the same way. I mean, we look at same way we look at an old model of a car. You know, some of the old models are really cool, but most of the old models are just old. And the whole idea is to make sure that you stay out in front of folks and it makes sense in their world and what they're seeing. And tell us about the maintenance of those and revisions and price changes and the things that you do every day, the kind of stuff that you do every day to make sure that these pieces are up to speed. And you got a couple of other things here with economic adjustments. And what does that mean? What does an economic adjustment mean?
Well, you know, that's something I wanted to make sure and point out as part of the presentation today, Dave, is that, you know, there's opportunities that people don't realize. They could go out and revise their GSA schedule, and in many opportunities raise the prices that are already their approved GSA schedule prices, and there's an opportunity to gain additional margin. And what happens in a lot of cases over time is that the customer who's trying to sell the GSA has cost changes in their own equation, where, you know, the cost of semi-precious or precious materials goes up. Even something simple like we've got people that sell batteries to GSA, and the cost of lead and nickel and other materials like that goes up. And if you've got a schedule that's been out there on GSA Advantage for a couple of years, and your schedule's a couple of years old, and you've not looked at revising that for the purpose of economic adjustments, there's an opportunity for you to potentially raise your prices, still sell to the government effectively, and gain additional margin that you're currently letting go because your schedule is not current. And we take that process through as part of an all-inclusive revision. And what we do is we treat your GSA schedule like a treasure chest, and we open it back up in the pathway of a revision, and then from there we make any and all changes the client wants to make. It all happens for a single flat rate, and all those changes could be additions, deletions, also those important economic adjustments to adjust prices as your cost changes. And then we have to get that back in front of the GSA procurement officer, get those changes approved, and that becomes part of your revised GSA schedule. Then we go back out to GSA Advantage, upload the new changes. The procurement officer or PCO GSA checks those to make sure it matches what they've just approved, and then they turn it on from the inside, and that would conclude the revision to get your schedule current. And
that's an awesome thing that you guys do. I love it when you do it because I don't have to. That's a beautiful thing. So again, any questions for you with that? And I'll defer that to Jamie and make sure that we get that. Let me just check for questions real quick. I don't see anything from that. If you have any questions, just type them in the right-hand side or raise your hand, and I'll do my best to be able to ask some questions. Here, John says, here you go, Jamie, here's a softball for you. What's the cost of something like that? You said all of the changes, doesn't matter what you guys have. What's the cost for you to do that if you did it?
We do that for the single flat rate fee of $14.95, and that's any and all adjustments to your GSA schedule, which also includes, as people are coming up on their 5-year increment for schedule extension, that's a great time to do a revision, make everything current, and we do the extension and the revision all as part of that whole process if you happen to need an extension as well. So $14.95 gets it done. It's an inexpensive investment to make your schedule current, look as good as you can be in front of the GSA buyers, and also recover some lost margin if there's an opportunity to make economic adjustments with the prices of your approved GSA schedule.
And there's always room for margin enhancement. And a lot of folks went in originally, I'm telling you, I see it all the time, they went in with these low prices, especially in the labor categories, and it's killing them because of that. Restructuring your labor categories so that you have, I'm telling you, it can be done. It can be done. We do it, and I know Jamie does it, and that's why I love Jamie. Who else do you know out there? Doesn't matter what you do, $14.95, boom, there it is. And the fact of the matter is, I don't want to make anybody feel bad because I know some of you spent a lot of money on your GSA schedule development, and these guys do it for $3,000 for products and $4,000 for services. So again, please don't hang up or I don't want to make you feel bad. But that's why we love Jamie and his crew, because of exactly that. So I appreciate that, Jamie. If I have any questions, we'll get back in just a minute. I want to roll on to what we have next is step 5 is after we understand what the market looks like and after we've made a plan, after we got our pieces in place, and we're not just going to wait to have our pieces, but we got to go out and get these guys. We got to start building the relationships. We have to start getting ahead of those folks. We have to be proactive about our pursuit. We need to leverage those relationships. We need to gain influence on those so that we can get ahead of the RFP processes and find those winnable opportunities so that we can win the business. Again, it's a process that has to be done. It has to be done in order to be able to compete and compete effectively with the people that you have. So next up we have Carl. He's the founder of, Carl Dixon's the founder of CapturePlanning.com, and he has some of the best free stuff that you could possibly get going to CapturePlanning.com. And I'm going to shift real quick, and I'm going to change the presenter, and you never know how this is going to work once it goes. So you ready to take the lead here, Carl?
I'm ready.
Here we go. Switching over. All right. You can now.
All right. Gotta click the button here.
There you go.
You got me?
I do. There he is. That looks vaguely familiar.
Okay. Question came up earlier about sequestration, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I'm really going to focus on a couple of key points that really matter about it. There's a whole lot more detail, and about 2 weeks ago we published a white paper on the subject. So if sequestration is something that concerns you, you definitely want to check out this white paper, and all you have to do, well, there's a price, and the price is you got to send me an email. So email address is on screen. I'm about to flip it. Make sure you write it down. It's carldixon@captureplanning.com. Send me that email, and I'll send you the white paper. I'm going to give you some of the high points about sequestration, though. It's an interesting topic, and there's outright panic going on in the government contractor community over it. And part of me finds that to be full of irony, because all of the concern over the budget cuts is concern about a cut in the rate of growth of the government. The government spending is all still going to be there. This is a huge market. And only a few certain kinds of contracts. And if that's not you, then this actually becomes an opportunity for you and not something that should scare you. So I hope you got my email address, because I need to move on and get into the meat of things here. Sequestration, what it's all about. First off, the concern a few weeks ago was whether sequestration was going to happen or not. Now it has happened, so now we know budgets are going to be cut. And the truth is, it doesn't matter whether they came up with something to some kind of loophole to get them past sequestration or not. Budgets were going to be cut anyway. So that's just a reality that we need to accept, that budgets are going to be cut. And the folks who have to really be worried about that are the incumbents, especially incumbents with service contracts, because they've got in their corporate budgets an assumption about the size of their future contracts. They've got revenue assumptions in there, and they've spent money related to overhead expenses based on those assumptions. Now they're finding that the revenue that they're going to have is going to be less than what they thought it was, and as a result, their overhead as a percentage is increasing, and that is going to hurt their competitiveness. Incumbents have another problem, and that's salary escalations. You get a contract, you do good work, you got good people working that contract, so you treat your people well. 5 years later, they've all had raises. But when you go to recompete that contract now, all those people who did good work and got raises have priced you out of the game. And I saw an announcement a few days ago that incumbents are losing 60% of their recompetes right now. And they're losing their recompetes because they've priced themselves out of the game over time by escalating salaries, so that when they hit their recompete, they're competing against people that are bidding new people to the contract at the lower end of the required qualifications. And so incumbents are getting a double whammy here, and really need to be concerned. And that's because of the low price, technically acceptable evaluation criteria. Low price, technically acceptable means that the lowest price that meets the technical specifications is going to win. Not all contracts will have that as the evaluation criteria, but that's the trend right now. That's the big fashion. So when you go into your recompete with your best staff, you're actually at a disadvantage against somebody who has simply acceptable staff.
That's right. And really, to add on to that, Carl, is that technically acceptable is determined by criteria that's laid out. A lot of times you don't know what the technically acceptable criteria is, but they create that as technically, and if you meet it, that's how I got shot by a contracting officer, was this right here. We had the only answer for their RFP, but the problem is the person that was competing against us wound up saying they could do it, or they had the certification. We didn't ask them for specific information on that. So the lowest price technically acceptable, again, you can win. You can win doing this. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, when you submit your proposal, that's not the time to start telling them that your offering is the only acceptable offering because it has this feature or this performance specification. It's too late at that point. At that point, what will define acceptable is going to be whatever it says in the RFP or whatever specifications they had when they wrote the RFP many months ago. So if you want to have any influence over what technically acceptable means, you need to be there before that gets put into writing, okay, when they are preparing the RFP, not after they put it out. Let me talk more about what you need to do in the face of the budget cuts that we know are coming. The main thing you need to do is get lean and mean. You need to lower your overhead, especially in the services business. If you think about it, everybody is bidding off of the same labor pool, the same people who are out there. And there is no, you don't have a whole lot of control over that. What you do have control over is what you do your pricing, and you want to make sure that you're adding as little as possible. So what I tell people, especially the small businesses, is, you know what, put office space in warehouses, do whatever it takes. Your larger competitors can't do that. They're locked into long-term contracts, and they've got, you know, huge amounts of assets that they'll be, you know, paying for years, all expanding their overhead. So you need to get in there and undercut them by having just the least amount of overhead that you can get away with. And one of the things that you can do, of course, is outsource. But you have to outsource intelligently. You don't want to outsource things like, you know, having the capability to tell your story, to develop your message. But you can outsource things like production. Okay, when it comes to marketing to government, you need to be able to make your case and explain why you're the best. But you don't necessarily have to be the one who's, you know, doing all the reproduction and stuff in the binders in order to get a proposal submitted. You can also use junior staff who are supported by an experienced coach. Okay, you can outsource expertise to teach you how to do things, but you don't want to give up on developing capability internally. So coaching is better than giving it up completely. You can also outsource planning and reviewing. Sometimes using a consultant to help you get things started, then you do all the work in the middle and then bring them back at the tail end to help review it can be a really good way to outsource expertise without necessarily you know, spending consultant rates on the whole project. Another thing you can do is use the right tools. One of the things that I love about the isiFederal Market Essentials reports, okay, is that is a turnkey tool that puts all of your leads right in front of you and does it quickly and for less than what it would probably cost you in salary to pay somebody to do it internally. That's a perfect example of a tool that you can buy that will save you, a considerable amount of money. My own
your check
is Prop Library.
Your check is in the mail, Carl.
My own personal favorite tool, of course, is Prop Library, where we've taken all of the proposal process and all of the tools and things that you need there, and put that into a tool where it's an off-the-shelf solution. You can, instead of spending what the big boys spent to develop their proposal processes, you can just buy ours for probably 1% of what they spent developing theirs, and then turn around and compete with them. The other thing you need to do is use the right processes. Being lean and mean means being efficient, okay? If you are making it up as you go along in terms of how you go about doing business development and proposals, then you're not efficient. And you can't use, we're a small business, so we don't have, a whole lot of process and stuff as an excuse in this market. Okay, this market requires you to be efficient, so you really need to think through your processes, because everybody has to get more competitive. Okay, one of the things that the budget cuts are going to do is it's going to result in more companies chasing fewer contracts, and the individual contracts will have a lower average value. Okay, so more companies chasing fewer contracts with a lower average value means that the level of competition is going to increase, and in order to compensate, you've got to get more competitive. Win rates now matter more than they did. Even though more companies are going to be chasing fewer contracts with a lower value, okay, that you can expect that to lower your win rates. Now you really need to focus on driving them as high as they can be just to stay in the game. Relationships, relationship marketing. Now that things are more competitive, the only thing that, the number one approach to boosting your win rates is relationship marketing. So if win rates matter more, then now relationships matter more. So even though you've got fewer, you're lowering your overhead, so you've got fewer staff in BD, you're dealing with a more competitive market, you need to refocus your efforts to pursue relationships more than ever. You can't, this is not the market to go shotgunning your bids into. If you just go bidding everything as a way of making up for the fact that the market is more competitive, that just means that with everybody doing a better job of competing, you'll be doing a worse job of competing, and that's not any way to keep the revenue coming in to meet your payroll. So the next thing is selective bidding now matters more than it did. You could get away with shotgunning bids in the past. You can't get away with that anymore. You need to only pursue the bids where you have the relationships. You need to drive your win rates up by not bidding outside of where you have a competitive advantage or an information advantage. Those are the things that will drive your win rate up. So if you don't have them, you need to walk away. You need to be prepared to do that, and you need to do it. Have more, dedication to be better prepared to walk away from bids than ever before. If you do those things, then this new environment becomes an opportunity. It's an opportunity to steal from the incumbents.
I love it.
Incumbents are losing What's that?
I love it. My favorite part.
Incumbents are losing more than half their bids. All right, those should all be going to you. And when you get the incumbent's bid, you're building market share, but more importantly, you're gaining relationships with customers. Okay, those relationships now matter more. So you want to get in there and steal from the incumbents so that you have the opportunity to be in the customer's face on a daily basis. All right, that's the kind of relationship that will enable you to do more business at that customer and to grow that customer over time, so that while everybody else is panicking over sequestration and everybody else is struggling to be competitive and laying off their BD staff in order to bring their overhead rates down, okay, if you enter into that market being more competitive and focusing on your win rate, okay, you will not only do better in the short term, but you'll do better in the long term as you steal things away from the incumbents and take over their relationships. All right, so that's my 2 cents on sequestration. There's one other thing that I want to tell you about, and that's a webinar that we've got coming up. On May 28th, we're doing a webinar where we're going to connect the dots. We're going to connect the dots between all the various aspects of business development and proposals and show you how to visualize it. We sort of stumbled across this when we were working on our newsletter last week, and we've got a really cool way to visualize how these things all work together, and we're looking at it and really discovering some things about why you need to do things, when you need to do things, and how you go about doing them in order to win, all as a result of being able to look at it in a new way. So if you want to register for the newsletter, get information about it, I put a short URL on the screen there, so you can write that down, or if you have my email address from the last screen, you can just email me and ask me for it, and I'll send it to you along with that white paper.
We'll shoot it out as a recap too. We'll make sure everybody gets all the docs, because that was one of the questions, is links and docs of everything that we've looked at. So I'll make sure that we do that too, Carl. So good stuff. I'm switching back over to take over the driving, and I think I'm back up now. Any questions for Carl when it comes to this stuff? Anything in particular that you guys want to talk about? I know there was, hang on one second. Let me just check real quick on that. I know the question about sequestration, I love sequestration. I love anything that creates change in the marketplace, because anything that disrupts the market creates opportunity. I think you nailed it, Carl, is that if we can pounce on this now, if we're building the relationships and pouncing on this, we can garner where the primes are, where the major incumbents and primes are losing. It's great. I love it. So I really appreciate that. Let's see. I'm in business development. Some of my contacts have been pulled back. How should I continue to keep my relationships with my current relationships? 1 second, Raphael. I need to ask you a couple of questions. Hopefully you are here that I can, Raphael, real quick, if you're still here. There he is. Raphael, do you have, if your mic, are you there, Raphael?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, you're in business development. Some of your contacts have been pulled back.
I'm in contracts.
Oh, contracts. I'm sorry, have been pulled back. Yeah, and that is problematic, obviously. So, but you still know the people that are there.
Yes, I do.
Tell me about your contracts and who they were with, so that we can get an idea of. You don't have to give names, but the agency, whatever happens to be.
Department of Treasury.
Okay.
Located in Washington D.C. and GSA. We, again, I have good contacts down there. I built relationships, and they basically gave us some contracts, and because of the sequestration, they had to put them on hold. And they told me they'd call them at the end of March, so on and so forth. But I don't want to be pushy, and I'm just trying to figure out a way how I can keep the relationship going without keep asking them when they think they're going to release the projects again.
You bet. One of the things that I would do is, you can always talk about something else, first of all. Have a different reason to call. If you can call them about anything else, I mean, you say, hey, I heard this about that or the other thing, or there's a procurement briefing over here, or are you going to be at this, they've done, GSA's canceled all of their, expos, so you can't go see them, right? So, ask them if they're going to be involved in any local kind of trainings or anything like it. Get something that you can talk to them about outside of just asking them, hey, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? Because I'm with you. That'll bug you. That'll bug anybody to death. But yeah, anytime you can give somebody a lot of times if we could just call them up and ask them, how even on a personal level, I would be in their heads so much as far as how's the sequestration affecting you personally, because that's something that's hitting them right at home. Some of the folks in DOD are getting cut 20%, right? They're down to 32 hours instead of 40. So that's something you can ask them. Hey, how's that affecting you? You'll be able to be all right. How get in and kind of build those relationships on a different level as opposed to just that. But good for you for developing the contracts. Obviously, you know relationships trump, right? Relationship.
Oh yes, most definitely. Most definitely. We were awarded probably like $6 million worth of work last year on relationships.
On relationships alone. So all those go along with that. I know we're running a little bit late, so Raphael, I'm going to mute you for a second. I'm going to rip through this real quick. Real quick with what we were talking about earlier, Sarah brought it up, and there's a couple other folks that brought up dealing with finding the right people. This is a need that everybody has. I have it, you have it, everybody that's doing business development in the federal space, everybody's got this problem. And being able to identify those people, and Raphael, you're spot on, and the people that you need, if people buy from people they like, then somehow you got to get them to like you, right? Well, you can't get them to like you if you don't even know who they are. So first of all, we can help you find them. This will help you be relevant to them. There's a couple of ways. Again, if you go back in YouTube from last month, if you haven't seen what we did last month with procurement briefings and executive briefings, the overview for that, it is spot on in being able to be relative and relevant to them in this time, just inviting them and just kind of pinging them as you're going. It gives you the ability to touch them anywhere from 4 to 12 times, and it creates brand awareness, whole bunch of good stuff. I never did that before, laid out that kind of secret sauce. So, but in this, you can help you stay relevant to them using tools like that, making sure that making phone calls, and ultimately getting ahead of that RFP and help you respond, like Carl was saying, the right ways to do that and help you win. Ideally, this is the idea. And you have contracts that are on hold, Raphael. They're going to unplug. Eventually, they're going to get unplugged. And the same thing's going to happen here. The money's going to flow, and Carl hit it right on the head. It's not that they really cut anything. They cut the spending of any increases. So that's where we're operating now. Now this can have some effect and will have some effect, but ultimately I really believe that as we get better and better and better at working at dealing with the federal government, that we'll get better and better at maintaining our margins and being able to service them at a higher level. So here we're going to talk about how you can find them. This is step one, and it's the only pitch I'm going to give you. This is step one in helping you understand your market, and it's something that you can do today. Carl referenced it earlier, and it's our Market Essentials package, and it helps you find the key contacts who buy what you sell. Your competitors' contact, I cannot tell you how important this is. In my world, where if I can identify the key competitors' contacts and go after them, and whether you need a crowbar or a 2x4 or whatever it happens to be, but I'll bash them over the head and get them away from your competitor, that's one thing. But most of the time, it's just a matter of building those relationships. Sometimes it's, bam, just landing on them at the right time, and it could be the right time. So these are under-the-radar contracts. You cannot find them anyplace else because nobody puts it in this context. And that's what I found is that when I was looking at Deltek and all, Centurion and Envy, all the big guys that have all these big contract stuff, it doesn't impress me because I want to find the stuff that nobody else knows about. and so do you. And so this is the way to be able to do it. Agency breakdown of spending lets you know which agencies to target, the primes and their contacts, so that if you want to do business with a prime and you can't get in with the prime because you go to these expos or whatever it happens to be, or speed dating sessions, and you can't, get in the database, fill in your information, and put you in the database. 5 years later, you still haven't gotten a phone call. Why? Because you're just like everybody else. You can't be just like everybody else. You've got to be able to approach them differently. And who better to get you into a prime contact than somebody in the federal government that says, hey, Raphael, go talk to John over there. He's the guy that you need to talk to. Make sure you should talk to him with the prime. Hey, you already passed all the rest of that noise. You're in talking to the person that's actually physically running that project. And that's what's really important. And also recommended action steps. If you mention this webinar, shoot me an email. If you want to do this, you can save $1,000, and it's regularly $4,500, so $3,500 gets for you. Again, now I cannot reiterate this enough. Carl's on point. Now is the time to pounce on the federal market, capture ground, and help your competition vacate their place. I love this time. I love any kind of change in the marketplace. Again, visit proplibrary.com and captureplanning.com. Get the free white paper. Send Carl an email. You'll get his email in a minute. You got a coupon for $100 off for the individual piece. GSA schedule development. Again, if you need some help on your GSA information, give Jamie a call. Jamie Zell at 937-602-8930. And for us, we're updating our doing business with the government. There's a lot of stuff that I wrote back. I'll tell you the story about that another time, but I wrote that 3 years ago. There's a lot of stuff that I've learned and changed about that. And I'm changing a lot of the pieces in there and getting new links, because some of those links are old. Not my fault, but because the government changes their stuff. So watch for the new release there. Next webinar is April 16th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We really appreciate you being here. Sorry that we held you so long. Here's our information. If there's any additional questions, shoot me an email. Shoot Carl his information, so you get the information from Carl, and Jamie's information is there. We'll keep this up for a little bit. If you have any other additional questions, let me just make sure that there isn't anything pressing right here. Can you give me more information on your marketing package? Yes, I will absolutely do that, and we'll send that out as part of the update. We'll give you some samples there on how we do it, and any additional information that you need from any of the other folks. So we really appreciate you being here. Thanks again, and have a phenomenal month. Hopefully this was beneficial for you, and we absolutely look forward to seeing you next month. Have a great time. I really appreciate your help, Carl. Thanks a lot, and Jamie, you as well.